trade is done within the continent. The rest is done with the rest of the world. If African countries continue to have trade between themselves, it will not only increase the economy of African countries, but it will also reinforce the relationship between Africans, because trading between Africans will really deepen the integration that the AU is calling for. But for that to be possible, for Africa to trade with Africa, we have a number of hurdles to really overcome. The first of them is crisis, conflict. You cannot move when there is conflict in your region. For example, look at the Sahel region now, between Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. It's impossible to trade between those countries. So peace is really necessary for trade. Infrastructure is also necessary for trade. So far in Africa, if you want, for example, today to go from Dakar to South Africa, you have either to travel through Ethiopia or through Kenya or even through Europe, London, Paris or other places, Dubai, to go to South Africa. That cannot really be good for Africans. So we need infrastructure, we need trains, we need roads, we need boats to do trade between countries, for example, between Dakar and Abidjan. The best way is to have boats that take goods from those two countries. So infrastructure is really very important to really help. But I do believe that also, apart from those issues, because mainly African trade is borders trade, cross-border trade, we need also to ensure that African countries lift all these visa issues, make sure that when you move from one country to another one, they make it the easiest way for you. For example, what ECOWAS is doing at the moment, where if you have an ID of one of the members of ECOWAS, you can indefinitely go to any of the 15 countries. That is also the way that, and it is possible to do that because the AU has adopted a new protocol on free movement of person and right of establishment and right of residence. But this treaty has not yet adopted, it has not yet been ratified by 5 countries out of the 55 that we have.
I think our systems were designed to serve European colonial countries, so we don't really have enough products to sell to one another and industries, and so I think that's a very important thing in increasing trade between countries in our region. I think the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, holds a lot of promise. I think if negotiations there proceed quickly and comprehensively, I think that will give a great platform to increasing trade and removal of non-tariff barriers. So the difficulties of our roads, of our border crossings, of our shipping lanes and our railways, all of these need improvements, and we have seen investment by the Chinese and others to do this.
We've seen that some regional blocks are really very well connected. I mean, traveling between East African countries, for example, is easier. But it's not the same case when traveling from one block to another.
Correct.
What is the problem here?
You know, sometimes you have to fly to Dubai or to Europe to get to a country that's just next door to you. I think that it's time for a single African airspace, and there have been work towards that. But I think free trade is not really going to work unless there is free movement of people. And as you say, the East African community, the economic community of the West African states, ECOWAS, is much better at allowing people to travel in the regions. In the southern African region, it's not possible. I have to take my passport if I go to Botswana or Zimbabwe or Zambia. I don't always need a visa, but I can't travel just using my national identity document. And we need to get to the point where that is feasible and practical and help citizens do business right across our continent.
So what is the other problems that may drag this ambition to have trade? I mean, Africa has always had this problem of conflicts, political instability. How does that come in?
Well, definitely. We still unfortunately have many hotspots, whether it's in the Sahel from extremist terrorist groups, or in the Horn of Africa in Somalia, or in the eastern DRC. All of these things will affect development, unfortunately, that you can't fully develop until you are fully at peace. And that's one of the major tasks of the African Union, and it does apply its mind seriously to it, but it's just such a complex set of factors that cause conflict and that can help conflict be reduced. So we have a very volatile continent, and when your energy is going into fighting, your energy is not going into trade.